Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Sydney and I hope you all had a good week. Happy Friday. I have gotten a lot of DMs and questions and comments from people on Twitter and Instagram on a couple of important topics in tech, including coding bootcamps. And who better to answer those questions for you than me? You're a beautiful, smart, and talented certified nerdy girl who went to not only one, but 2 bootcamps. Today I am just going to sit down and answer some of the most popular questions that I've got. But for starters, I wanted to thank everybody who has decided to come and join the family. Thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, retweeting, commenting, just everything in the scope of social media. I really appreciate you all's followings and I hope to bring you all more and more content. Okay, so I have my phone here. I am going to just look up all of the most popular questions that I got, and we can start reading from there. Now let's start with the most basic question. What is a coding bootcamp? Coding bootcamps are short, intensive programs with the intention to teach students the fundamentals of programming in one certain language or multiple languages. So with programming bootcamps, you are in a certain amount of time learning the fundamentals of how to code in one programming language or multiple. And with an awesome combination of a great programming bootcamp, your study habits, as well as different projects to present, you could potentially be looking at a bunch of job opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about the coding bootcamps that I went to. One was a study-intensive course that I went to for 10 weeks. That was 5 days in a row for 3 hours a night. And the other one was a year-long with project-based work for 1 night a week. With the year-long bootcamp, I was immediately able to start building projects within the first couple of weeks. And with the 10-week intensive training bootcamp, I was able to practically see how I would be working with teams and groups of people on different projects, just like I would be inside of an office setting. Now, both of these bootcamps had a major effect on how I was able to get a job within 6 months of graduating from my second bootcamp. Both of them definitely had their advantages, and I will also say that both of them had their disadvantages. For the intensive training bootcamp, there was a lot of content to squeeze into 10 weeks, 5 nights a week for 3 hours. It was incredibly difficult to start making projects that was presentable and ready for recruiters to see on demo days. It felt like unless I could stay up until long hours of the night, I really could barely study. And for the year-long bootcamp, it was incredibly difficult for me personally to socialize, interact, find project partners to start collaborating on. And for different TAs, there was different project-based curriculum. So there wasn't necessarily a way for different friends on different teams to collaborate with each other until the very end of the bootcamp. Sometimes on different projects, you would be just working by yourself and trying to make sure that you figure out what exactly you needed to Google, what kind of problems that you needed to solve, and with such a large amount of students, it was a lot to try and get the teacher's attention. With that being said, I know that both of these bootcamps have taken the time to make sure that they've heard my concerns as well as others to greatly improve their curriculums. We're all going to be set on our own different paths to make sure that we get to a place where we want to in tech. And to be honest, your path is going to be way different from my path. And that's okay. There's so many different resources, learning materials out there to make sure that you understand the fundamentals of programming, and a coding bootcamp is just one of the great things out there. All right, let's take the next question. Do you get a degree or certification upon graduation? Honestly, that depends on the type of course that you're studying with. There are so many great and practical resources for anybody who wants to self-study for different certifications like the AWS or CompTIA. And depending on what coding bootcamp or self-study that you decide to take on, passing those exams could also be a part of the curriculum to graduate. When I was working with the intensive bootcamp, I had to take a course called Agile Processes, which helped me get a certificate on what knowledge that I needed to have practically to work on agile dev teams. From both bootcamps, I got a certificate of completion, and from there was able to show that as well as my projects going into different technical interviews. But did I get a degree or certification from these bootcamps? No, but that doesn't mean that other bootcamps won't give you those. So do your research. Next question. Are there bootcamps with scholarship opportunities? Absolutely 100% yes. It is so incredibly important that you do your homework and do the research to find different scholarship opportunities for any of the bootcamps that you're interested in. because depending on the type of situation that you have financially, they'll be able to work with you specifically if they really want you to join their program. Some establishments will provide scholarships automatically if you're a woman or a person of color, and some may ask to verify your income to deduct from the total cost of the bootcamp. There are also other opportunities where you can take out loans with the specific bootcamp or with another financial company, but it's always best to make sure that you find a process that you're comfortable with to spend your money on. In no way, form, or fashion are you obligated to take any of their loan opportunities or whatever else the bootcamp might propose to you. Depending on the type of boot camps and how long and how intensive they are, they can range from maybe a couple hundred to thousands of dollars. The great thing about most boot camps is that they will do their best to work with you if you want to be there and they want to have you. Are there interview processes or applications for bootcamp admissions? Depending on the type of bootcamp, there can be processes as simple as filling out a form, maybe talking to a counselor, or as complicated as doing intensive coursework for a week, turning it in, filling out an application, getting an in-person interview, and then seeing whether or not you pass or fail. My experience with both boot camps and their admission processes were completely different, so listen up. For the short intensive boot camp, I filled out a form and then got a call immediately from the owner of the boot camp. We talked for about an hour. She understood that I was incredibly prepared to do whatever it was needed to complete this bootcamp. With the year-long bootcamp, I had to file an application, get references, complete an assessment before any of the classes started, and they had to determine whether or not I would be an exact fit for any of the courses. There are a lot of different combinations on how bootcamps specifically have you admitted, and I just happened to get the extremes of them both. So again, this is an opportunity to make sure that you do your research and figure out which one would be the best for you. Next question. How many hours a week should I dedicate to my coursework in a boot camp? So this answer I think will be a bit of a double-edged sword because that really does depend on the type of boot camp that you go to. But gun to my head, if I had to pick a number, I would say about 15 to 20 hours a week. Now, before any of you freak out, that doesn't necessarily mean taking 15 to 20 hours a week outside of the classroom. That might be just in total, but that also depends on the boot camp, as well as how much time you want to dedicate to extra projects, extra study sessions. Ultimately, it's going to be up to you to figure out how much work you're going to be dedicating to outside of the classroom. And in the end, it's only going to benefit you even more if you're able to put in that extra intensive work, whether it be just looking for a couple more hours on a project or different studying materials, solving coding challenges on your own or with a partner or a friend, or just getting up the courage to go to office hours and asking your instructor different questions that you may not have found the answer to on your own. Next question. Are paid boot camps a better option than free ones? Oof, this is a bit of a difficult question because I've had paid boot camps, very small ones that were just okay and didn't necessarily catch my attention as much as it could have, versus a free boot camp, the year-long intensive one, that actually was a great resource. And did I mention it was free? This is one of those questions where I'll have to implore you to do your own independent research on which type of content would be better for you. For me personally, I've had so much experience with great paid content, and like I said before, I've had not so great paid content. Now, of course, there might be a couple of catches when it comes to going to these free boot camps. The year-long boot camp that I went to sorted us into different categories for recruiting processes, and it took a really long time for me to find jobs that way. Using reviews and word of mouth from people who have taken these boot camps, free or paid, is incredibly important when you're doing your research, because you want to hear the good as well as the bad when it comes to the quality of the bootcamp. Now, to answer your question in more detail, there can definitely be advantages for paying for a bootcamp. Paid bootcamps normally have full-time instructors that are specifically assigned to you to make sure that you get the help that you need to graduate. There are different research teams, development teams, education teams that have worked specifically on this curriculum full-time, which will help you get the benefits of a full bootcamp experience. So, would it be worth considering a paid bootcamp? Absolutely. But there is just as much free content out there from developers who have just as much world experience as instructors in paid boot camps. So it's always going to be to your advantage if you decide to use these free resources on top of the paid bootcamp curriculum that you're using. Are there special differences between online and in-person bootcamps? The real answer? Connection, partnership, team building. During in-person boot camps, you're always going to find the need to have a study buddy or pick a partner or just have a friend to hold yourself accountable to all of the coursework. And sometimes that can just be super difficult when you're going through an online boot camp on your own. But there are different advantages for being on an online boot camp. This gives you the initiative to try and self-study in a more intensive situation. Teaching yourself different concepts that you don't understand is super helpful, and you can take the course on your own time. So you're not necessarily waiting for anybody, an instructor, teacher, tutor, to schedule you for certain classes online. Versus in person, where your body has to specifically be in a place at a time for that certain span of time. But I would always suggest that even if you are in an online bootcamp or in person, find a study buddy, find an accountability partner or a mentor that will help you reach your goals. And make sure that in both situations, you take advantage of office hours where you can personally sit with a teacher and ask them as many questions as you want. So for a lot of you, the last question that I have is, what are the next steps and where do I even start looking for a coding bootcamp? Here's how you should start looking for the bootcamp that's right for you. Take advantage of free resources first. Do you even like JavaScript or Java or Python or Ruby? Do you even know what those are? I believe that it's super important to find a programming language that is compatible for your thought process, for how you want it to look aesthetically, and compatibility on how much you understand it. So taking advantage of free resources out there with a simple Google search is incredibly important before you start the process of even looking for a bootcamp. Again, there is so much quality content, videos, charts, graphs, coursework that are all free and all on the internet to help you figure out what programming language that you were most compatible to. And then when you start understanding the basics, then we can start moving on to an intensive program where you already are at an advantage on what you want to learn. Now, when it comes to actually looking for a boot camp, make sure that you do as much research as possible. You want to know how much it's going to cost, if it's not going to cost, how many hours that you're actually going to have to commit to. Do I like socializing with people more, or would I rather be on my own time when it comes to studying or looking at classes? These are all important questions that you need to ask yourself personally before you dedicate yourself and the time to a coding bootcamp. Also, check out local meetups in your area. Is there a specific one that you found maybe on Meetup or Google somewhere, Facebook meetups, that you've been really wanting to try and see if people can answer your questions about certain boot camps or languages? You might as well just go. And it's so much better to network and connect with people that might become your mentors or your friends while you're going through these boot camps. And that way you can find people that want to collaborate on projects, which will help you learn even better. Now, when you have applied and gotten accepted into any of these boot camps, dedicate a certain amount of time to study each day. Build a study plan, and I cannot stress this enough. Link in the description box below. There is no reason for you not to dedicate at least 20 minutes every day to looking at some of the extra content that's in your course. You've decided, you've made a decision to get through this course and graduate with a certificate. So don't waste any time. Don't squander any of your time. You have gotten such a great opportunity here. Take that extra step to start learning and growing and doing more just beyond the coursework, because that's going to help you find a job so much faster. And my last piece of advice, just do your best. Not everybody is going to have it figured out. You're not going to necessarily love the programming language that you decided to work with in a bootcamp. Maybe it's going to be hard in the beginning. Maybe it's going to be a little bit confusing, even after you've done a little bit of pre-work and research on it. But that doesn't mean that you won't understand it eventually going through the course. So take your time, give yourself some grace and patience, and ask questions, because I bet you that 10 other people will have the same exact question. Take advantage of these office hours, people. Find an accountability partner, a mentor, a friend, somebody who is in your Slack channel, who's in your study group, who might want to help you collaborate and learn together. Make sure that you Google a lot. That's literally all we do. Nobody knows all the answers. And have fun. You got this. You know that you do. That's how you've gotten into this bootcamp so far. You are amazing, smart, talented, and you'll do just fine if you put in the effort. And if you ever need any advice on what steps that you want to take next, I am opening up my calendar for consult calls, so make sure you find the link in the description box, as well as sign up for my email list for more exclusive content that you won't get anywhere else. If you guys have any other burning questions that you want me to answer in these videos, make sure that you leave a comment below or DM me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My name is Sidney, and I'll see you next time.